All right, welcome back to another episode of the Midnight Founders Podcast. Today we are lucky enough to be in studio with Devon Millington. He is a serial entrepreneur. I'd start to name all the companies, but there's just way too many. AJ's scrolling through his
I'm looking
LinkedIn
at the
right
list.
now.
CEO, business owner, CEO.
If Devon finds a problem, he just solves it.
Love it.
So I've loved getting to know him, and I'm excited to learn more about him on the podcast today. So Devon, why don't you give us a 30-second pitch on what you're working on right now?
Yeah, first, I mean, it sounds much more prolific than it is, right? So most of my businesses are small businesses, but I build infrastructure for home and community-based services sector in Medicaid. So, and particularly for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And why I have so many companies is because infrastructure takes a lot of, like a multi-pronged approach in order to be able to, adequately address the problem. So I have a software venture where I sell software to home caregiver agencies. And I do professional services, so business development and coaching, and then I also do clinical services for that population. So what I'm currently working on right now is a new C Corp launch called Unify HCBS. And what I'm realistically doing is I'm unifying the three businesses that I've started over the last 7 years, as well as adding in a new framework called Empower Me, which is a cognitive access framework for people with developmental disabilities to understand themselves, and for people who are working with them to understand them. So people with lower acuity, they need help, being understood. And this Empower Me framework helps us understand them. And I'm layering that inside our EHR or electronic health record, and that's called Unify HCBS. So 30-second pitch on that. Most businesses that run software for this type of industry start at the top down. They think of what are the organizational needs? The challenge is that in the Medicaid landscape that I work in, everything flows off the disabled individual themselves. And so the software has to meet them where they are, which means we have to understand them, and they have to understand their plan of care, and all the workflows which the businesses are contractually obligated to follow need to start and flow from that point. So my 30-second pitch is that I'm turning the industry on its head, flipping it upside down.
Disruption. We love to hear that
disruption.
on the show. So Devon, I mean, I don't know the space very well.
Nobody does. So you're not in the dark. You're in the norm. I'm the guy who lives in the dark.
It's kind of one of those spaces where you're like, wow, I didn't know this really existed. But I've got a good friend here in the Spanish Fork area. He runs a company, and I'm not sure exactly how his works as well either, but he is a contractor with the state that helps home or track the care of disabled individuals that are mentally disabled. So would that be someone you work with?
Yep. So that would be a customer of mine.
That would be a customer of yours.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
For which company?
3 of them. So if he wanted software to help track all the requirements that a government contracted entity would be required to track, then he could use my software. If he was
like a CRM kind of.
Yeah, well, more than a CRM, it's more of these companies,
compliance stuff, right?
Yeah, it's compliance stuff. So it's, policies, procedures, your policies and procedures have to align with the state contract that you follow. Your documentation for those policies and procedures need to align with the state contract that you follow. And you need a warehouse. So the company Quiver or QVR is effective, think of an arrow quiver, right? And we hold all the workflows inside one place, so that we're not using a fragmented software solution. It's an all-in-one comprehensive software solution for your friend's business.
Full stop everything.
Exactly.
That's cool.
So
what I think initially I understood that you help people that are not necessarily in the business of taking care of multiple people, but if they want to just take care of at home somebody in their family or somebody in their network.
Yep.
You help that person as well.
That's
right?
another business. Yeah.
That is. Okay.
You have to procure a contract with the state office of Medicaid, and in Utah, it's Department of Health and Human Services, but nationally there's Medicaid, and Medicaid's federal, right? And then every state has its own spin or flavor on how they handle it, and it's handled across various state departments. And there's always a Medicaid waiver contract. So typically these waiver programs are just not well discussed. Your friend found a niche and probably has a good business that he operates out of it,
they've
which
done
is
pretty
awesome.
well. Yeah.
It's not commonplace that people are aware that these contracts are open source, meaning that if you fulfill the elements of the RFP, right, then you can provide services to that space. And so my business would help you fulfill the elements by 1, utilizing our software, but 2, utilizing our business workflows. And then there's a certain amount of just like understanding the operation. So we provide training, business development. So to answer Jake's kind of point, yeah, if somebody had like a niece, a nephew, a friend, somebody in their network, or one step better, there's like 2 or 3 people that like, you know, had a play group growing up, and now their kids have become adults and they're looking at the landscape and they're like, I don't know, like I think I could do it my way. I'm concerned about sending my loved one to somebody else's care program. Like I'd really like to do it myself, but I can't afford to pay the staff out of my own pocket because it's super expensive. Then they could procure, using my business, a government contract. We could create a business entity for them. And then under the laws of Medicaid, if they're servicing them under their business entity, they could provide the care for their loved one.
Yeah, so it opens it up. That part was fascinating to me because it's like Medicaid or Medicare could pay for them to go to a home, but if you want to take care of them on your own, there's no benefit. Like you don't get any of that money. But if you run through this system, then you can take care of your loved one at your home with your own, you know, the way that you're going to take care of them, but you can get the financial benefit.
It's like structuring it in a way that you can take advantage of the incentives that are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise you couldn't. Is that right?
Yeah.
Correct. There's just a tiny ticky-tacky law that says that we can't pay the family of origin for the care provision in their home. But if I own an LLC and I'm a business owner of the LLC or a partner
like
in
a
an
home
LLC,
health care thing or something.
then I'm bypassing. It's not bypassing. It's just working within the confines that Medicaid allows. So if I become an own LLC, I carry my own. And the reason why is because the rule is in place to prevent abuse, neglect, and exploit.
Right.
But when I open up a business, I have to have insurance. I have to follow the state, procurement guidelines. I have to have, various elements that protect the needs of the individual and ultimately protect, ultimately it's the needs of the individual. But the payer source is the federal government and the state government. And so they want to ensure that those funds aren't being exploited. So if we open up a business, then businesses have certain protections and provisions that a regular family wouldn't have. So that's why they'll allow for it to happen underneath a business domain.
How did you land here? This is so
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good story. I've always just got along with people with disabilities. I don't have anyone in my immediate family who's disabled.
Oh, interesting. That's usually where it stems
Usually,
from.
yeah, it just for me wasn't the case. My mom was a paraprofessional, like in elementary schools, and so I would like kind of just hang out in the resource room with the kids there. There was a young guy that I knew growing up. His name was EJ, and he kind of paralleled me in school. And I don't know, like out on the playground, EJ would go play with basketball by himself, and I would just go play basketball with EJ. And I always felt really like comfortable and natural. And I just always say that, disabled people are the only ones that ever laugh at my jokes. So like, I just felt at home there.
They're your people.
Yeah. And so, and then kind of a funny story on that is that when I was in high school, they have like what they call Unified Sports Program. It wasn't explained to me that it was Unified Sports Program. It was explained to me that there's this track meet and the typically developed folk would compete against the typically developed folk, and the, non-typically developed folk would compete against themselves, and we'd have a combined score at this track meet. And so I was, not really much of a track athlete, but I was just familiar with the resource room. So the resource teacher came to me and was like, hey, would you come to this track meet with us? And I was like, okay, sure. So, it's a like most track meets, right? Like there's a shot put and discus or whatever. And so like the first event was the shot put. So I threw the shot put, and then, EJ throws a shot put. My other friends throw the shot put, right? And then we do the disc and we do the long jump. They're all individual events. And then the final event was a 40. And, we're sitting there and there's, 6 lanes or whatever. And like, I'm on the far left lane, and immediately to my right is this dude that looks like little mini Justin Gatlin. Like he's got his track spikes on, he's got his suit on, he's got his dreads. And I'm like, I ain't never ran a 4.2, but today's the day, right? And so I gotta like lock up, and they fire the gun, and I take off, and it's 40, it's not a very long race. And I get right to the end, I hear all this cheering. I'm like, I won. But I realize that all the cheering is happening behind me. And I look back, and there's little mini Justin Gatlin like, come on, dude, you got this, man. We got this. Right? And turns out I won the Special Olympics that day. Unintentionally.
You're like, I'm the champion of everything. How's this happening?
No, it was horrible because like I didn't realize that was the point. Like nobody told me that.
Oh.
And so this special educator, like this young girl, like she walks up to me, she looks at me square in the face, all 5'2" of her, and she's like, he has won that race every year for 4 years, and you stole it from him.
Oh man,
I hope you're proud of yourself.
that feels horrible.
Man.
And so I've spent my whole life trying to live that down. And so I just build infrastructure for people with disabilities because, I want to live down the shame.
Yeah.
You're like, let me pay back into the
Exactly.
system. That's a great story.
So did you go to school? You got an undergrad in Reno.
Yeah.
Did you go to school knowing that you wanted to do something in this space?
Roundabouts. So my bachelor's in psychology, and then I got a minor in business. And I wanted to do
and the master's at Utah State, right?
Yeah, I got my master's at Utah State.
Very
so
cool.
I wanted to do like what they call organizational business management. So I wanted to do change management for companies, because that's lucrative. You make money that way. And so, I started, but when I was going to school for psychology, unbeknownst to most people, UNR has a really famous professor named Dr. Steve Hayes. And Steve Hayes is one of the 50 most influential scientists in the U.S. in the last decade or so, because he created a framework for understanding human cognition that works along a behavior analytic lens. And so I studied under him and studied under a number of like really good researchers there. And I just fell in love with what we call applied behavior analysis. And ABA takes kind of 2 tracks, well, 3 tracks really. You can train dolphins for SeaWorld, you can work with people with disabilities, or you can run businesses in like an organizationally efficient manner. And so I kind of was going the OBM track, but as a guy in Reno, I was unmarried and I was looking at the opportunities for grad school, and I was like, East Coast Florida would be great. I was LDS, and so I was like, Utah State. I'm going to Utah.
Yeah.
So I left Reno and went to Utah.
Fit the cost.
Yep. And so
Florida Logan.
Yeah.
Florida Logan.
They're about the same temperature.
Exactly, right? And so went to Utah State for grad school, and they kind of, it was
You're talking
weird.
to an Aggie here, so I'm a huge fan.
Are you an Aggie? Okay.
Oh, totally. Love
Yeah.
it.
So they Utah State kind of switched my program from a PhD track to a master's track, because I were just going through some program like changes and shifts, and so I ended up in a master's program that was like part-time after like in the evenings. And I was like, this is not gonna fly. Like I was like, I'm here to get in, get out, right? And so there's a job opening for a caregiver agency there in Logan for a regional director position. And so I just kind of like saw the job listing online, applied for it, and for whatever reason, the CEO hired me, and they put me in charge of 36 disabled people, $3.5 million of revenue, and about 100 FTE, and said, "Good luck."
While you're in school?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was my master's
Good for
program.
you.
So, and they paid me $20 an hour, so I was making big money. It was like overwhelmingly difficult to like assume that role with that level of experience, but I just kind of like live by the fake it till you make it mentality. And so I just kind of drilled down, and what I realized is that there's so many complex rules in this space that nobody really like actually reads the rule book. And so when you're new in a place and you're trying to find some way, it's because I was only like 25, so I'm looking for like, and most of the people that were that directly reported to me, like they've been in that company for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that they're in their 40s.
So there's some dynamics there that are tricky to
right. And so I was
navigate.
like, how do you quickly become
the expert.
an expert and lead, a 100 person organization when you barely have like just a little bit of exposure into psychology and business? And I was going to school for ABA, so I at least had like that technical background that some people didn't. And I was like, I'll just read the rule book. So I just studied and studied and studied and studied the Medicare manual, the Medicaid manuals, and the state rules and regs.
Oh, bless you. I don't know how you got through all that.
Just like necessity.
That was before AI.
He was 25.
Yeah, there you
necessity.
go.
A lot of energy.
I was
There
single,
you go.
right? So that was, definitely had more time on my
All-nighters.
hands. So yeah, I just studied the rule book. And the more I studied the rule book, the more I became like a content matter expert. The more that became true, the more people respected me and the decisions that I would make. And from that, I was able to create like several business systems that got me promoted. And so after, 2 years of being the regional director, they promoted me to be the vice president of all the professional services for that company. So I was responsible for pretty much all the front end of care for, at that time, it was like a $38 million, organization. And so, yeah.
What a great strategy. I mean, you're actually reading and understanding the rule book that everyone else should know, but no one does. And that's what elevated you in their minds. That's so cool.
Realistic. And whenever
probably what also led to you starting these companies.
Right.
Yeah. Because what ended up happening is I started innovating inside that company, right? And that goes all fine and well until you
So the entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. And it was going great. Like we had built several systems. The CEO, like kind of the nature of the business there's a family that started the company, like 1978 or whatever, and then had a CEO that had been a longstanding CEO. He's a good guy. But there was like, from my perspective, and if they're listening, whatever, but won't name their names, but the dynamic between the owner and the CEO was one where it's like a lot of risk aversion and,
conservative.
Very conservative. I would have a lot of conversations like, we should try this, we should try that. And they're like, yeah, but let's not put any money at it. Like the CEO didn't really want to like go full send into any initiatives at the displeasure of the owners, and didn't really want to put his neck out. And I was constantly like bumping up against him, being like, dude, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this.
So you're pushing, he's pulling back.
Yeah. So unbeknownst to me, my last presentation at that company was called Innovate or Die. And so I gave a boardroom presentation about like, hey, look, do we want to be like Netflix or do we want to be Blockbuster? Right. And do you want to be, Uber, or do you want to be like Turo, or do you want to be Enterprise Rent-A-Car? Like, who do you want to be? And they're a $38 million company. And so it's like, we have all the resources that we need to truly change the landscape. And what always bugged me about this space is that it's extremely expensive to the federal and state government to take care of people with disabilities. Like on average, it's anywhere between $150,000 and $250,000 per year per individual on services.
Wow.
You start getting services at about age 25. If you live a normal life expectancy, 55 to 65 for this population, you're talking 40 years at $250,000. And you do the math. And then you start, and it's not that the money is problematic for me. It's like, what are we buying with that amount of money?
Make sure it's not wasted.
Yeah, because if I gave any intelligent person in the room and said, hey, look, here's the deal, man. Your buddy that you went to elementary school with, he's got 20 years of services that he's going to need. I'll give you $4 million right now today. You just have to take care of him for the next 20 years. Could you do that? Oh, by the way, that's not including his medical care. That's not including his food stamps. That's not including his Social Security. So I literally just want you to help him have a good life. 20 years, $4 million. Could you do it?
I mean, yeah.
Yes.
Seems reasonable.
I would think so,
Seems
yeah.
reasonable that anybody could do that. But if I was to walk you through the average group home in our state, and I was to show you like monetize what that cost to the taxpayer is, and then I would show you the product that you're buying, as a taxpayer, you'd be upset. And so I live in this dynamic of like, I love people with disabilities. I want them to have a high quality of life. I'm also like pretty libertarian by nature. And I'm like, I just don't feel good. I don't feel good that the money I'm fine with the money if the money's buying us something great. But if the money's not buying us something great, then either less money, which would be hard, or better outcomes. So I chose the better outcomes approach, and I just focused on building better outcomes.
I love that.
You posted something on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago that I really liked. And I have it pulled up, so I'm just going to read it to you, but I want more context with this. It says, the essence of control is fear and the essence of freedom is love.
Okay, yeah.
So I want to dive into that because I loved,
Which is the tattoo.
That's my tattoo, yeah.
on your arm.
I
which
loved
is awesome.
the post. I loved how you talked about like, when you feel like you're in control, it may feel better in the short term, but like, you're better off long term if you understand that you're not in control of everything.
Yeah.
So dive into that a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this could be a long one. Human beings by nature have a biological process. That biological process is to survive, right? And we could talk religion, we could talk spirit, like, but whatever. But if we just distill us down like human beings, like if I grab your arm and it starts to hurt, like you're going to pull away. Why? Like, why do you pull away from pain? Well, you pull away from pain because like if that pain is exacerbated and like it's going to injure you. If you have an injury, you're less likely to be able to survive, right? And if you just like strip humans down to their most basic elements, we have a survival instinct, right?
That's fight or flight, right?
Exactly. Yes. Fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. Those are the trauma responses, in a fearful condition, right? And if you think about that, when we're the most afraid, what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to control or fight against the fact that we're going to die, right? And so the most basic derivative for human beings, in my opinion, is that we're afraid to die, right? And there's things that we can do to help us be comfortable with that, but realistically, our body is afraid to die. And if your body's afraid to die and something's influencing it in a way that's difficult or scary, you're going to exert control. Stop dying, right? So the essence of control is fear, meaning that fear begets control and control begets fear. Meaning if I start to control you, inside your body is going to rise up this like anxious condition, right? You're like, oh my gosh, like this guy's controlling me. He's trying to take my money. He's trying to take my family. He's trying to hurt me. He's all these things, right? So because that biological imprint lives like deep inside us, by virtue of pairing, stimulus pairing, right? If you think like Pavlovian conditioning, like stimulus pairing, you can't escape that. And even in a small way, and you guys would get this at work, or I've got this at work, or people do this to me, like somebody tries to control me, it doesn't feel good inside. And so I do things naturally to get away from that. Or naturally, if I'm afraid of something, right? I'm afraid of losing my job, I work harder out of a fear of losing my job. So fear begets control, control begets fear. The essence of control is fear.
The cycle.
It's a cycle, right? And its derivative is its most basic element, the human condition to survive. Well, the opposite of in my perspective, right? The opposite of, control is freedom, right? And so in my belief is that freedom, right? If you really love somebody for who they are, truly, you would let them be free to be who they are and behave how they want to behave and act how they want to act how they want to act. Like there's freedom in that. So when I give somebody an element of freedom, they're in a better place to receive love. And when I love somebody truly, they're in a better place to be more free to be themselves, free inside themselves.
And hopefully that encourages them to be even better too.
Yeah.
Like want to improve.
Exactly. Because it's not a survival based response. And if you just think of like basic human physiology, when you're in fight or flight, like your higher order processes go offline, right? Blood goes to your main core muscles, your eyes constrict, like your nervous system reacts in a way.
You're not thinking as clearly, right?
Correct. But when I remove fear, my highest order processes come online. And those are the feelings that produce creativity, right? Nobody was artistic whilst being beat, right? But where does like art come from? Where does music come from? Where does like high level conversation come from? Like it doesn't come in a panic state. It comes in a free state. And real love doesn't also come from a panic state. It comes from a free state.
It almost goes back, as you're talking, it makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If you have your basic needs covered, then you can, as you're going up the pyramid, you can actually self-actualize. Yeah. And that's where all this action that you're talking about is taking place, right?
Yeah, at the height of self-actualization is where I think like real godly love exists.
There you go.
It doesn't live in fear-driven states.
There you go.
It's like if we like kind of circle that back to like the businesses that I operate in, people with disabilities human beings in general are tough to predict, right? But people with disabilities are more difficult to predict because they don't follow normal patterns. Like humans look for patternicity in all things. That way we can predict, so that we can predict and control. So that way we can satisfy our own like sense of fear, right? So, and as I kind of get the root of your question, like what I was meaning by.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's so true in entrepreneurship too. I think there's like, it's so easy to just get stuck in like this state of fear with entrepreneurship. Cause it's like somebody that was on the podcast at the very beginning said that it doesn't matter what a business looks like from the front, the backyard's always on fire.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah. It was Zach Oates from Ovation.
So he said the backyard's always on fire. And you just have to get comfortable with that. Like in any business that anybody's running, there's always something going on. Like some walls falling down, something's crashing. Like there's something happening.
Performance reviews that have to be done.
Right.
Whatever.
There's something looming over your head. And I've had that in all the businesses that I've been involved in. And it's so easy to just get so focused on the one thing that's going wrong and like take you down this path of, well, my whole business is going to crumble because of this one issue.
And I would argue that in that place, if you're feeling that way or you don't get comfortable with that, then you're actually going to make fear-driven and overly controlling responses.
Which are subpar.
Or you're going to get paralyzed.
Both.
Right? Like you're not going to be creative. You're not going to be able to solve problems. You're not going to be able to actually face what's going on because you're so focused on the fear.
Yep.
So I love this concept because I felt myself going down that path, and I've had to just remind myself like, hey, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm not in control of most of the things that are happening in my life. I'm going to control what I can control, and I'm going to move forward. And whatever's going to
Yeah.
happen is going to happen. All things will work out in the end.
Well, and it feels like we always go to worst case scenario, like
Right.
extreme,
Oh
like,
yeah.
which
In
never
entrepreneurship,
happens, right?
you're alone, right? Like
Yeah.
most of the time you're on your own. And so it's so easy to just head straight down that path.
Yep.
I think that what I would argue is that the reason why it's so easy is because it's like biologically, evolutionary dictated.
Right.
So it's not even that like you're consciously choosing that. In fact, it's the opposite. It's you're allowing the body to do what the body was programmed to do.
Right.
Rather than make the conscious lift, the effort, and sit with the discomfort of it and be like, actually, I'm at a fork in the road. And I can let my body take over and do its thing, which means it's going to turn into an automatic response system. It's going to be angry. It's going to be irate. It's going to yell louder. No one's being productive today. You're going to walk in the front door of your office and everyone's like, oh man, what's got a hold of him? Turns out he can't get the loan that he wanted to get, right? And so everybody in the office is going to feel that because this person is trying to control the outcomes of things that they probably don't have control over. Not with Central Bank, but with a different bank, as an entrepreneur, I was
Glad you made that distinction.
It was important for Jake. When I started my first business, it's called Silver Bear Swim School. This is outside of my normal stuff that I do. I was actually in the process of starting Silver Bear to kind of leave the industry that I'm in now because I was like, I've done my, had a falling out with the CEO. I was like, I'm good here. I'm going to go do something else. But long and short of it, like I did everything that I was supposed to do. And I get to loan committee at one of the local CDCs, and I won't trash them publicly, but internally we can talk about that. But that local CDC, I got loan approval from everybody except for one person on the bank for my swim school. And Jake knows, like, because Central Bank refinanced my swim school. But I ended up losing a 504 loan because of the loan committee. It would have otherwise been like a 504 loan at like 3.8%.
Oh.
And it had to go with a 7A loan, variable rate, right during the pandemic, right before the rate hike.
That hurts.
It hurt to the tune of like almost $1 million. Like it was ridiculous in terms of like how much pain that caused. And I had no ability to control the outcome of that loan committee, right? Whoever my loan officer was, like maybe he didn't prep well. Maybe I didn't prep well. Like there's so many things. And maybe I did everything that I was supposed to do. But maybe my loan officer woke up late that day, didn't read his notes, went to the committee, and maybe his loan committee wanted to teach him a lesson for being a gunslinger kind of attitude. Maybe he was a young pup who hadn't got things figured out yet. Who knows? I have no clue. All I know is that like me trying to force that outcome created a more of like a hostile environment with me, and everyone in my immediate circle like could feel that tension, which lowered their productivity, lowered my chance for success, dissipated my better outcomes.
And hurt relationships.
Hurt relationships with me and people around me.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to control a thing that I couldn't.
Yeah. So true, man.
It happens. I think, like you said, it happens naturally, and we just have to first acknowledge it and understand what's happening, and then resist or rise above it maybe. And that's out of, like you said, out of our biological norms. So we have to kind of be conscious of that and work towards that.
Yeah, I think that like, emotion, and I don't know like how deep you guys go on these conversations, but some people in entrepreneurship get in some of like, it's going to find your weaknesses. So like I'll say to people that like, if you don't face your demons will raise your kids. If they don't raise your kids, they will 100% run your business. And what I mean by that is like, if you can keep it in proximity, like if you keep it internal to you and you face your demons here inside you, but you don't let them dissipate out, right? Some of us are really good at like fighting our demons on the inside, and maybe we don't let our family know, right? But that pressure, like that need to control things, that fear that you live, like it's going to leak out of you. It's going to leak out of you into your businesses as well. And so like it will put you in really, really deep, dark, heavy places. And my perspective on that is like, that hurts, like that emotional pain that is so painful that you'd want to like harm yourself or, just throw it all away or who knows what. Like that emotional pain is so heavy that it feels like death. But if you can learn to just like accept that and lean into that instead of like let it force you to a poor action, but just like let it just roll through you, then number one, you're going to develop an insane amount of emotional maturity. Number two, you're not going to act from a fear-driven place, which would likely, you're going to take a crazy expensive, I call them capital loans, right? You're going to go get a horrible loan that's going to tank your business, or worse, you're going to do something that's going to embarrass you or your family. Beyond all of that, you're going to harm yourself physically. Like there are so many things that could happen in that pain locker that will destroy your life if you don't learn to just let it, just experience the fact and surrender to the fact that you can't control these outcomes. And that will give you like a sense of capacity to act in the midst of the most difficult parts of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think it's a crucial skill that all entrepreneurs have to have.
I agree.
Okay, you're, I don't know, 10 years into this entrepreneurial journey, I guess. I don't know. I didn't look at the dates, but
Give or take.
yeah. As you look back over, the last decade plus, what advice would you have for the new guy or girl that's just getting ready to start their company?
Yeah, I get asked that question a decent amount of times. I think that most people look at the risk, like the risk reward, like algorithm as like, well, what will happen if I do that? Right. And this is the Andy Frisella quote, but like, what will happen if I do that? And entrepreneurs look at risk like, well, what will happen if I don't? What will happen if I don't take that debt on? What will happen if I don't push for that product? What will happen if I don't? And so my perspective is like, first figure out like what your risk profile is. If your risk profile is like, your mind is like every time you come up against a problem, it's like, well, if I do that, then what's going to happen? If I do that, then what's going to happen? I would suggest like you work on yourself before starting a business, because that's just going to work you over. And many failed businesses fail not because the business idea was bad, but because the mindset of the entrepreneur wasn't ready to take real risk. So evaluate your risk tolerance first. And if you find your brain drifting towards like, yeah, but if I don't do this, if I don't do this, if your brain drifts towards that, then I would say like full send mode.
Yeah,
Send mode.
I think, and I want you to finish your thought here, because I know you're in the middle of your thought as far as advice goes. But I was having a really interesting conversation with my brother the other day, and he's in Nashville, Tennessee, and works for CAT, and he's a data analyst and just a really smart guy. And we were talking about something. I think a recent purchase he'd made, a car, or some furniture set or something. And I was like, yeah, doesn't that make you crazy when you have, buyer's regret? And he's like, buyer's regret, meaning you didn't buy it, but you wish you would have? I'm like, yes, I hate that. I hate that. And he's like, oh, no. I have buyer's remorse. I'm like, oh, no, I don't. I mean, if you buy it, you don't like it, then you just sell it or something. Yeah. And I think that's just the difference between, do you fear more of what you didn't do versus what you did? And I think it's kind of what you're saying here.
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying, that like you have to just sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, where does my brain want to go? Does it want to go to, worst case scenario, like conserve? Because entrepreneurship is an expansion exercise. It's not a conservatorship. And unless you're cool with expansion, you won't do well in entrepreneurship. So like evaluate. That doesn't mean that you can't shift your brain. I think that there's so much we can do to change our mindset, but like don't use it. Don't use it as the way to change your mindset. Like get your mind right and then start. I think that you'll avoid so many pitfalls in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, love that. It's great advice for our audience.
Yeah, this has been fascinating. It's been fun to learn more about what you're working on. What's I know we haven't touched on this much, but I know you're taking Quiver through a kind of an accelerator program right now, and you've talked about how you're incorporating AI, and you've broken a couple models trying to run AI. But yeah, what's next for you, and what are you working on right now?
So everything that I've done so far has been like small business LLCs. Corporate structure is different, and there's no real, from what I've been told or what I've understood, like it's really difficult to understand corporate structure like on your own. Like it really, like there's just so many ways to get burned. especially when you're trying to create like a scalable software venture, which is what I'm trying to do. And so I took a startup ignition business accelerator from a guy named John Richards. Probably people around
Oh,
here know
he's
who he is.
awesome.
We've had him and Tyler.
Yeah.
on the
And
podcast.
Tyler, yeah, they're great.
Awesome entrepreneurs.
duo.
Super incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through their startup ignition program. They launched a tool suite that's like basically like an AI business vetting thing. That would save anybody a ton of money. And
That analyzes your business
Mhm.
before it comes in. Is that
yeah,
what you're
it's
saying? Okay.
basically like I'm gonna forget all of the acronyms and like models that they use to describe it, but they're like it's inside the idea of what we call lean startup, which is mostly like a SaaS mindset
Sure.
For technology companies. But effectively, it's like building out this big business idea and this big business canvas that's inside this lean startup model, and they have an AI tool that is embedded with their knowledge and experience, and so it's really incredible.
I think Alex Hormasi does some of this stuff too
Yeah.
with acquisition.com. And
Yeah,
things.
similar to that. What I was getting, I kind of lost track of the initial question, but I'm in the process of launching my new C Corp, and there are just elements of launching a C Corp that I have no clue like what to do or how to do it, because it's like entrepreneurship with way more ways to get burned than a small business.
Right.
So getting a primer or training on that is incredibly important, because if the goal, and most infrastructure or tech companies are looking for funding, and you'll never like find serious investors unless you set up properly. And that's something that I had like zero clue until I went through a program like
Oh,
this.
it's smart. And you want to make sure you get, the right attorneys involved, because they'll help you guide you the right way on that too. But yeah, it's really smart that you're doing that. Who do you follow? Who do you look up to? Who do you read about? Who do you, idolize as far as like inspiration coming to you from a business standpoint?
This will sound like really narcissistic, but I'll just kind of put it out there. Right now, like I'm kind of like in a little like personal hermitage. So, and why I'm doing that is because I recognize that like I've spent a lot of my life like looking around me to figure out like who should I be based off of like what everyone is telling me to be. There's a guy named Heidegger, a philosopher, that calls it the they self, right? So what do they, and we say this all the time, like, well, they will look down on me if I do that. Like, well, who's they? Like, is it your mom? Would she really, if you think about it, like, is it your dad? Is it your best friend? Is it your wife? Like, who are they, right? So human beings have this notion called the they self, and we make so many decisions based off the they self. So right now, like, I'm actually like trying to avoid the theys, and I'm just like turning everything inward, because I want to figure out like, who am I independent of my they self? Because I've lived most of my life in response to the they self. And I think that most people actually do that. They're just maybe not aware of that.
Yeah.
But so right now I don't really have any like heroes or icons in business. I'm kind of like figuring out for me. But if I was to like pick people that matter to me, or that I feel like are like great entrepreneurs, like I just like, there's so many, just take your pick. But yeah, so I would say probably nobody. I know it's really arrogant, but not because
I think
there's
that's
not-
okay.
I love that you're being
Yeah,
honest.
I think that's
well,
okay.
it's not because there's not people of value. It's because like I want to like come from my grounded center place. And that doesn't mean there's not good info out there. It just means that like I've spent so much time downloading info. I'm like, it's time to like integrate it and organize it, and not just like listen to everybody, but like act on it from my internal compass.
Kind of a self-evaluation stage right now. Sounds
Exactly.
like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, this has been awesome. How do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about how to be part of your programs? Or
Probably find me on LinkedIn. I have a website, devonmillington.com. I had to create like a place to explain stuff for investors. And so I made a website. So you can find me on my website.
DEVON.
Yeah, with an O, yeah.
Okay. And you're pretty active on LinkedIn too, so they can find you there as well.
LinkedIn. I mean, you could literally Google me, and I'm like the white Devon that doesn't play soccer in Africa. There's not that many Devon Millingtons. There's like an African soccer player, and then there's me here in Utah. So you'll find me pretty easy.
One other Jake McCarg.
Yeah, just one other.
Yeah, there's one. We're friends on Facebook.
So. There you go. I love it. Well, thanks for being on the show. Good luck with everything.
Awesome.
We'll
Yeah, thanks
follow
for
your
having me, guys.
journey.
This is great.
See ya.